if they put a lot of effort in that relationship outside of marriage, if that same energy they used to work on their marriage itself, the marriage can work.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to Season 2 of Tune Islam, a podcast for Singapore Muslim millennials on Islamic faith, love and happiness. Here's where we share spiritual guidance and practical insights to inspire positivity and uplift our well-being. My name is Azzah Fariha and I will be your host for today. Joining us today, we have Ustazah Hidayah Azman and our guest, Ustaz Syakir Pasuni. Ustazah is a content creator who actively shares her daily reflections through her social media platforms. Ustaz's passion is in learning and teaching. He has also been serving as Naib Qadi with the Registry of Muslim Marriages since 2007, yes, Ustaz?
Yes.
And he conducts Islamic knowledge and Arabic language classes. He is currently also a Deputy Registrar at ROMM. Assalamualaikum Ustazah and Ustaz.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, it's a pleasure to be here.
Ustaz, my first question is for you. I'm sure in your profession, you have dealt with many issues of divorce and infidelity in your line of work. But what do you think is a detrimental cause that we can look out for? And how has it continued to persist in our community, this issue and this problem that we have?
Okay, first of all, regarding divorce in Singapore, as you know, within our community, divorces are registered at the Sharia Court in Singapore. And we know that statistically, the number of divorce in our community is quite high. So every year, the average number of solemnizations is around 6,000 solemnizations every year. And as for divorces, it's between 1,600 to 2,000 divorces every year. So that's quite a high number. So when we talk about what are the reasons for divorce, there are multiple reasons given by couples or plaintiffs. When they file an application for divorce, they list down the reasons or the causes of divorce. So usually it's like, for example, financial issues or communication issues or desertion and also abuse. But unfortunately, the highest number or the reason that gets the highest numbers given by couples are infidelity. In Malay, curang lah. Infidelity being unfaithful or committing adultery. And this is unfortunate.
Just now, Ustaz, you mentioned that the highest or the most probable cause is marital infidelity. And, you know, as you mentioned just now, there were various reasons why a marriage could lead to divorce. But what do you think the places that infidelity happens? What is the most, common traits that you can see in these cases?
Okay, but first I would like to touch on the point, the reasons that people commit adultery. First of all, we have to, I think, differentiate between habitual cheaters and people who commit extramarital affair lah. So for the habitual cheaters part, that one just straight go to therapy lah. I can help you, and counseling may help, but they need to work on themselves a lot more. But as for talking about relationships, about marriages, there are reasons why people do that. They have their own reasons, but ultimately, why they go out and find someone to have an affair with, if we try to look at it, there are, can I say, push and pull factors. Push factors, for example, they have an unhealthy marital relationship at home. They don't have good communication. You know, in marriage courses, we always teach couples, we always emphasize the principles of sakina, mawaddah, and rahmah. Principles of a healthy and happy and blissful marriage. Sakina meaning tranquility. You want your home to be the place of peace, rest, salvation. Mawaddah, which is love in the relationship between husband and wife and all the family members, and also rahmah, to have that mercy to complete both the sakina, the tranquility, and the mawaddah and love. So when a couple fails to realize the sakina, the home, their household does not become a place of tranquility. Their household does not become a place of where they find peace. Every day they go back, they argue with their spouse. Every day they go back, it's a stressful situation. Both husband and wife working, they come back, the children are crying. I think maybe we can all relate. We have young children. The laundry is strewn about, messy everywhere. No food on the table probably, or still it's not a place where you come back. It's not peaceful.
Yes.
But that is what actually what real households looks like. So when they come back and they see all of that as stress, and they see that as I don't think I'm happy at this home, and then everyone is stressed and cannot find food, everything, like everyone wants to rest when they come back home, but with the children and the kids and like that, well, this is what you sign up for. You cannot go back and say that, I can't, this is stressful for me, I want to talk with you, there's no time, you always do this, you're always busy with this, you're always busy with that. So this sakina, this tranquility, it is something that both the husband and wife must work to achieve that. Marriage is work. Marriage is hard work.
Yeah.
So when they can't do this, people who go sideways is maybe because they give up, or they don't realize the instruction in religion, and also to make a marriage work is that you have to put a lot of work in to make the relationship healthy, successful, and good communication. So when that happens, so this is maybe one of the reasons that push people towards having affairs, or now what they call it sometimes, I think work spouse, work husband or wife, or something like that. Maybe we can talk about it a bit more later. So when the house does not become a place of peace, that is one of the reasons why people think that it is okay to have a spouse somewhere else, or is it okay to find someone to talk to. So this is the push factor is an unhealthy relationship, but there are also the pull factors. That means these are the we need to talk about boundaries. Why you fall into that relationship outside of your marriage is because you don't observe the boundaries. The most basic one, of course, the halal gap, and who you can talk to. What are the boundaries of communication between those from the opposite sex?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ustaz, there's a very interesting point that you brought up. I think because of the stress that either husband or wife is facing at home, you mentioned messy, and there's no communication much between each other because they're all busy with other things, getting the home done properly and all that. So the partner who seeks distraction outside, maybe he or she wants to find, or wants to go back to a place of before they had kids, before the house is messy, where it's a bit more peaceful. So maybe what they are looking for when they are distracted outside is that peace that they used to have, right? And it's interesting that you mentioned work spouse or work husband, work wife, because I think the place that they spend most time at will be at work. So naturally, I think that's why a lot of infidelity probably happen in the workplace. Is that correct, Ustaz?
I don't think there has been any research done to really point out where, but logically it would be someone that you would be tend to spend a long time together with, build that familiarity, because it starts with that. It starts with knowing one another, and then having lunch, and then talk about work, and then problems at home, confide, and then have some more emotional attachment, and then it gets to physical relationship. So, the trajectory is like that. So, but it's not just that. There are also those who go online and find people to date with and spend time with. So, I'm trying to think what spurs you. Sometimes there are those who comes from, they have a good relationship. The wife is okay, nothing wrong with the household family, but it's like they're bored, like nothing else to do.
I understand. I see.
So it takes time actually to cultivate a relationship outside of marriage. I wonder, because if they put a lot of effort in that relationship outside of marriage, if that same energy they used to work on their marriage itself, the marriage can work.
Exactly, yes, correct.
So it's like they are finding trouble lah, cari nahas lah.
Cari nahas, bukan cari pasal lah, cari nahas.
Sama. It's the same actually.
Ustazah, maybe I can ask you next with regards to what we have discussed, setting boundaries at work. How do you think we can set the boundaries as a person, to make sure that we do not go beyond what is needed at work? How do we set boundaries? Is there a need to set boundaries?
Okay, so setting boundaries is really important, be it with the people that we are with at work, or even sometimes when it comes to the relationships that we have with our friends, with our families, we need to constantly work on healthy boundaries. And, if we take a look at, for example, Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 35, Allah speaks about, He calls upon the people who believe. He calls on the importance of practicing mindfulness in our day-to-day and always striving to find ways to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for this, when we take a look at this reminder from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it tells us that, okay, I also need to be mindful, not just in the way that I worship Allah, but how I regulate myself in my day-to-day, inclusive of the interactions that I have with the people around me. So this could also include setting healthy boundaries as well. And on the matter earlier where Ustaz mentioned about, work spouses, I think this is really common, especially when you are working in industries where you spend really long hours with your colleagues. And, sometimes you do get comfortable, for example, with a certain colleague. And in this sense, it could be of a different gender. And then this is where I think all of these terms would come in, work husband, work spouse, and so on. So setting healthy boundaries is important. And if it is in the situation of work, I think most importantly is to first always maintain professionalism. Like, be mindful that you are in this line of work because of the work. And the things that I want to talk about, the things that I want to engage with would definitely be things that surrounds work in itself. I do get it that sometimes, we do need to have this friendly conversations and
talk about matters at home,
yes,
things
because
like that.
To some extent we want to be relatable to each other, right? We don't want to drop walls. Then I see you work, then
correct.
if I don't see you, okay, we're not going to talk about other stuff. But I don't know if you know this, but when it comes to setting healthy boundaries, there's this thing called the porous boundaries or non-porous boundaries. So a lot of times when we say we want to have healthy boundaries, right, we think of a brick wall. I set boundary, I set up a big wall, then people cannot pass
go through.
But porous or non-porous boundaries tell us that there will be times where you can allow certain things to pass through. There will be times where you need to put your, set your guard up to ensure that things do not go through. So this is where we apply the verse earlier. How can we be a little bit more mindful in our conversations with people? How can we be mindful in the kind of things that we engage with, especially when we are at work lah? I think, and on top of that is, it is also important to highlight these boundaries as well, because we cannot go around also expecting people know that this is a certain kind of boundary that you have set at work. And especially in cases where we speak about marriage, right? Well, when you take a look at people, maybe sometimes you can identify that, this person looks like married, or this person looks like single. But there are certain situations where people don't always read the room. So it is important to set such boundaries. For example, you can say okay, I'm actually married, and while we're at work, I'm really comfortable to only speak about things which are work related. If we are having lunch, for example, and then if there are certain personal things that we want to talk about, by all means. But these are some of the things that I hope that we can observe, so that we can continue on this professionalism, we can maintain this. And again, the bigger objective will always be wanting to hit whatever target that you have for the work that you are doing lah. And I think one more, I guess, challenge when it comes to the workplace is discussions, right? Sometimes you do need to talk to your colleague that is of a different gender. And in situations like that, I think it is best for us to try our best to avoid alone time. Perhaps in these situations, we might want to consider group meetings,
Zoom meetings,
or if the only option that you have is a one-on-one conversation with your colleague of a different gender, then you can always opt for public spaces where there are other people around, so that they can, be around and ensure that you are safe and ensure that we are constantly engaging in a conversation that is related to work. But I think at the end of the day, it is really important for us to also seek advice. If there are certain things that you're not sure, if there are certain boundaries that you want to set but you find it difficult, then you can always reach out to your asatizahs, right? You can always ask questions and get some insights as to how you can work around the situation.
That's a great reminder. I mean, if you don't know, you ask. Right.
Correct.
I think also it's very clear for us to always be mindful, because you know where you are, you know where you stand as a married person. You have to be mindful of your actions and your words. Sometimes the other party might think that you are the one taking the first step.
Correct.
But whereas actually the intentions get tangled up along the way. So I think it's a very good reminder as well for us. All right. Now, Ustaz, based on what Ustazah has mentioned just now, are there any interactions with couples that you have had before who kind of are going through what Ustazah has mentioned?
Yeah, sure. First, I would just like to add to what Ustazah mentioned. I can't imagine being the guy at the other end, being told off. These are the boundaries, you cannot do this.
Actually, it's not an easy conversation to have.
Definitely.
Correct.
But it is what it is. Boundaries are boundaries. We have religious guidelines, and it's not just being strict for the sake of being strict, for the sake of practicing the religion only, but the religious guidelines serve to also make people function better. So when boundaries are respected, things don't lead to another that leads towards things that we don't want to happen. So that's why the boundaries are there. So it's good to have that conversations in the beginning, the do's and don'ts. I can do this, I can do that. I cannot do this, I cannot do that. So it's important to have those conversations, not just on this matter, but actually a lot of things that we can understand, especially in a multiracial environment. Good opportunity for us to share, and also everyone has to play a part in this, because I can imagine in a place, for example, Ustazah works and she says we cannot do this, can do this, but then another person comes, maybe another not Ustazah, but she is open to this and to that, then that becomes a bit more complicated. We have to have, not everyone has to play part to understand this thing. So, okay, I actually have met couples who have committed extramarital affairs. It's not just the guy. It can be the wife also. So there is this, sometimes there's a perception that it's the guys that always cheat. No, it's actually both sides do cheat also. It is very difficult to move on from, to have your partner cheat on you. And I have spoken to counselors and they say seldom they can salvage a relationship. It is seldom that you can save a marriage where one party has cheated on another. There are a few, but not many. Usually the hurt is so much that they cannot recover from that. So whenever I meet the wife, where talking about this, it's always it's like the end of the world for them. They have sometimes the as I mentioned in the first answer, I said the husband cheats. His excuse was that he was not finding love at home. he finds it difficult to spend time with his wife. But when we look at the actual situation, what happens was both are working. The wife works, the husband works, and then this was a family where the husband had expectations. Expectations is an important one also in marriage. Expectations where the wife does everything. But the wife works also. She comes back around the same time. She has to take care of the baby, clean the baby, household chores, cook, prepare food and everything. And then the husband comes back, doesn't lift a finger, expects everything to be served to him. And then has the audacity to say that you're not spending enough time with me. That is why I cheat on you. I know this will make your blood boil, especially as wives. Women, also, maybe you can relate. So that's why we try to start with marriage education is important, especially for newlywed couples or people going to marriage to understand what the roles, responsibilities of husband and wife are. It's not when they cannot understand or have expectations that are unrealistic. So that is what happens lah. They don't really understand. So actually, that to me is just an excuse lah. There are those who there is another. Their excuse was the guy also. I happen to meet guys who cheat, but as I mentioned, there is
Both
equality.
ways, yes.
So another situation. The guy's excuse was that he wants to help her. She is recently embraced Islam, so he is supposedly the hero to come up and be the person of reference for her to learn more about Islam.
So dia ikut sunnah Nabi.
Well, that is what they say. So as I said, it's just an excuse because the wife will say he put himself in that position, right?
Wait, so that means he wanted to ask for permission to get married?
Something like that. Yeah. But they already established the relationship before they want to take the second wife lah. But it's still cheating lah.
It's still infidelity lah.
It's still infidelity. Yeah. So when we talk about cheating, there are two primary. Either emotional or physical cheating. What do you think is worse? Which one?
I think both is unexcusable.
Yeah, so there are those who say that, no, I didn't sleep with her.
Yeah.
I just spent time with her. I just talked to her. But it's the emotional attachments is I don't know, but maybe to wives, I think it is as bad as having physical relationship with someone else.
Yeah.
Right. Because emotional attachment is I think we are a bit off topic really, but
okay,
just talk a bit more. Emotional attachment is part of the relationship. It's not just physical relationship because it is very much together. In a healthy relationship, healthy marriage, you need to have that emotional, good emotional relationship with your spouse and also the physical aspect.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I think I've pretty much answered your question. Basically, it is, as I said, my interactions with couples who have one of them, either party committed infidelity. It is never easy. It's always, the wife is always in tears. The kids are broken, divided. Because this is the impact of divorce.
Yeah.
Not only on the spouse, but when you do this kind of thing, you hurt the children. They sometimes blame themselves. The wives I've talked to, some of them are in depression. They blame themselves. They ask why do this, why do that. And then the community at large is affected. For example, children who come from dysfunctional or broken families, statistics tell that they are more easily exposed or more easily influenced by negative influences out there. Yeah.
It's a very intricate and complex situation if such an incident occurs lah. Yeah, definitely. But sometimes in a work setting, not just of the opposite gender, sometimes even in the same gender. When we want to forge strong relationships with our friends, sometimes we also have to have boundaries, as we mentioned just now. But we want to do so without seeming too stringent and rigid, you know. How can we ensure that we are able to still forge strong relationships with these people, you know, with our work colleagues, and make sure that it's, you know, it's not going to end up in a negative situation?
If I can refer to a hadith of the Prophet from Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ did say, verily gentleness is not found in anything, but that it beautifies it. And it is not removed from anything, but that it disgraces it. So I think in any of our approaches in terms of, you know, even setting healthy boundaries, we also want to have compassion in the way that we apply it. And we also want to be kind, be empathetic, and to also understand, you know, who our target audience is, you know, who is this colleague and what kind of approach would be suitable for a certain colleague of ours, for example, at work. But in the same way, if we want to apply it to the relationships that we have with our families, with our friends, take a look at who you are speaking to and how best you can actually set these boundaries. If I can share, one thing that we need to understand is that the pursuit to set healthy boundaries, reality is sometimes it can get a little bit uncomfortable, because discomfort will always happen when you want to create change, be it you know, a change that is big or a change that is small. In the same way how when we want to implement these healthy boundaries towards other people, when it is implemented onto us, we will also feel at some point uncomfortable as well. So I think it is important for us to acknowledge that. But we also want to understand that when I set healthy boundaries, it's for a bigger purpose, it's for a bigger objective. A lot of times we feel like, oh, when I set healthy boundaries, it's like, oh, I'm drawing the line and then I'm cutting off, you know, all of the fun things from a relationship with friends or families, right? Or colleagues. But it's realizing that when I set healthy boundaries, the bigger purpose is to ensure that this strong relationship that I have, it continues on for the long run. So my bigger purpose is I want to ensure that we can continue to work together. We can continue to be friends. We can continue to live a life of a happy family, because we have set, you know, important boundaries in place. And if I can share just a few things that we can do, I think first thing is to communicate clearly and calmly. This is where we can use things like the I statement instead of the you statements. So I statements could look like, I would appreciate if my boundaries are respected, and if I am able to communicate with the people around me in a certain way. Instead of saying, oh, you must follow my boundaries, you must not talk to me like this, you must stop asking me all of these questions. So this will be very offensive to the person, because it's as if I'm putting things on you. But instead, this healthy boundaries is something that I want to nurture in this relationship that we have together. So communicate clearly using I statements. Other than that would be to choose the right time lah. And the right place. You know, sometimes when you are in a heated conversation, or maybe the situation is not suitable, it's difficult to actually implement such boundaries. But when both are ready to listen, both have, you know, an open heart to want to make this, you know, this thing work, right, for the long run, then we can certainly communicate it lah. Right place, right time. If we are not able to tell that person face to face, there is always text. There is always WhatsApp.
Depends on what you're comfortable with.
Definitely. And adding on to that is similarly to what Ustaz mentioned earlier, you may meet one person who's setting boundaries, and then the other person you meet, everything is okay with them. So I think this is where it is important for us to really be consistent when we set these healthy boundaries, because what we are trying to do is we are helping the other person to learn what is okay, what is not okay. And if I continue to, you know, apply this boundary on and off, then sometimes this person might not learn what are the healthy boundaries that I'm trying to set. So this is important for us to stick to the realistic limits that we set. We need to be firm, but at the same time, we need to be gentle in reinforcing all of these things lah. But I think at the end of the day, it is also important to reassure the person. You know, when you are setting healthy boundaries, especially when it's with family, with friends, right? Sometimes people might think if I set a healthy boundary, you know, it's like you don't love me anymore. It's like
Yeah.
it's like you don't care.
Yeah.
But again, reiterate what is the bigger objective, what is the bigger purpose. At the end of the day, we are in this for the long run, and setting healthy boundaries does not mean that there is no longer love, there is no longer care. Which at the end of the day, why we set healthy boundaries is because we love, because we care for one another.
It's always the little things, isn't it? Things that don't seem significant can make the biggest difference. But is it the same thing with boundaries? It might not seem like a big deal to cross a certain boundary, but to your partner, it can be. And sometimes all it takes is to be mindful and respectful of that. But what if you're single and looking? Are there boundaries at stake? Ustazah, there are those who are unmarried, but they are in the stages of wanting to get to know each other. What could be an ideal step or boundaries, as we were talking about just now, for the person to take note of?
Okay, what an exciting journey here, learning to get to know somebody. I think, of course, first things first, the basis of the religion will always be going back to what our intentions are, because every action, it comes with an intention. So it's important for us to be clear with our objectives, our purpose behind getting to know somebody. But at the same time, it is also important that when we want to get to know someone, we need to also instill that aspect of respect, wanting to hear out from the person, right? And also understand that, there are certain matters that can be discussed about. Certain personal matters might not be related to the pursuit at hand. But at the same time, I think it is also equally important to include a form of supervision. It could be an involvement of a family member, a friend, or somebody that is mutual, that can be trusted, so that we can ensure that, everything that is discussed about and the process of getting to know somebody can be well taken care of. Yeah, so it is safe and it is good for both parties. And at the same time, it is also important for us to look at consultation. Because this concept in Islam, we will call it istisharah. So basically, we consult with families, consult with an asatiza, basically seeking guidance. Because in getting to know someone, perhaps we might overlook certain things. Perhaps there are certain things that we do not know because we are new, right, to this arena or to this area.
Yes.
So talking to somebody who is experienced is also important, so that they can advise accordingly. And of course, on top of istisharah, we also have istikharah, right? Seeking guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what is best. And I think the last portion is the concept of tawakkal. Because in Surah Ali Imran verse 159, Allah did mention that, when you have, set upon something, you have made a decision, you need to put your reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because at the end of the day, as much as we put in our best efforts, we want to realize that with Allah will always be the best outcome. And whatever outcome that Allah blesses us with, we want to have, an open mind and an open heart to receive it, inshallah.
It's a very in-depth explanation, because I would think it's a very exciting time, getting to know each other. That's it. But I didn't know there's a huge long step that we can actually take, and those are very considerable factors that we can take on also, because I wouldn't think that we would need to consult with other people. I would think that the more important question at hand would be you communicating with your partner, that your partner to be, so to speak. Ustaz, what about you in your field of work? Do these steps that Ustazah has mentioned apply?
Picking up from where Ustazah left off, romantic relationship has to end up somewhere. It's when those who are at this stage, they shouldn't be lulling about, just having no intention of their relationship going somewhere. So it is ultimately, inevitable for the relationship to go somewhere. So apart from the istikharah in choosing a couple, one of the key elements that a couple or a person should look into is the compatibility. The first is, of course, the religious practice and understanding of a person, and also as important, has to be someone that is compatible with you. in Islam, this is called kafa'ah. That means someone from in fiqh books, it is explained as people from differing social classes which are very distant. I mean, there is less kafa'ah there. I mean, not so much compatible because of the vastly different background. So from that point, we can take that compatibility is an important part also in having a inshallah relationship lah, which have to lead towards halalization somewhere.
Halal what?
Halalization.
Halalization. I see. I like that word. Very nice.
Okay. So from there, then there is, I mean, then where do we go? What do we do? Right? After the istishara and everything else. And then, so once it gets serious, and that is when you get more advice. Once you are ready, you can consider Rasulullah SAW mentioned, Ya ma'syara syabab, man istata'a minkum ba'a falyatazawwaj. In summary, for those who are able to and can afford to, the next step, of course, they should be married to protect their chastity, and it's a natural progression. But that being said, marriage is not simply a progression of relationship, but it is a sacred covenant. It is a relationship that once you halalize it, it's not just becomes halal, but it becomes something that builds your faith, makes your relationship increase. I mean, your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be better Muslims and better people in general.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ustaz, for the reminder that, the progression is where we should look forward to and remind ourselves that ultimately the family we built is going to be the one who's going to ensure or, help us enter Jannah, enter paradise, inshallah. Yep. Thank you, Ustazah, and thank you, Ustaz, for the insightful sharing. We have all learned a lot from your sharing and personal experiences as well. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this episode, follow Tune Islam, share, and stay tuned for more. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.